Hey everybody, let's see if I can explain something. As men and women, we have an energetic field which surrounds us in the shape of a torus, and this is a very natural shape. It looks like an apple, like a magnetic field. And in our natural, fully present state, it's complete like this. But you have the allegory of the Genesis in the Garden of Eden, and eating of the apple of the tree of life, and here's a little worm stuck in the apple to kind of set off this metaphor. So what happens to us is connected and resonates in the ecology of nature and in the outside world, and also within our internal world and our microbiome and our behavior of what we manifest in life, and particularly the relationships that come into our lives. So in this world, what's considered normal is becoming increasingly clear to me now that it's pretty far from normal. So we actually sign up for this incredibly traumatic experience from the time we're born. We're kind of often very, very traumatic surgery for being born. The umbilical cord is cut, we're injected, we're incubated, we're separated from our parents. It's a very cold, sterile environment. We're spanked, all of this kind of stuff. And then you have like the stresses and strains of modern family life, building up this quite traumatic experience from a very young age. And I believe what's happening is that we're fracturing this toroidal field, because as a child especially, if something traumatic happens, then we're not equipped to deal with it and shake it off. So if you watch animals in nature, even if they're on the brink of death, they shake it off, and they kind of get on with their lives, and they're not in a way cursed with this consciousness that we have as men and women. So it essentially creates a fracture in our presence, and this field represents our full presence as well. So let's say there's a traumatic incident as an infant. There's abandonment as an example, or even worse trauma. There might be a split personality happening where the consciousness decides to essentially save an experience for later because it's too traumatic to go through at the time. And what that does is it creates like a split personality essentially. And this brings us on to the idea of a parasite. And the word parasite is a pair of sights. So it's like a splitting of the perspective or the presence in the experience. Now, parasites in the material realm, they'll start off as an egg, they'll turn into a worm, they'll find a body, a host, and then they'll become an egg again, and it goes in a loop. So it's a looping life cycle. And the same thing is happening in our consciousness. So if we have abandonment as a child, we are very likely to manifest relationships which repeat that abandonment in our experience. It's because we haven't dealt with this initial trauma, done the inner child work, gone into the experience, digging around in the memories enough to see it, to feel it, and then to come to a place of forgiveness. And when we do come to a place of forgiveness, which is, you know, easier said than done for some, but it's definitely possible, then the field, the toroidal field, is healed again, and then we won't have to repeat the experience to kind of learn the lesson in a way, even though it apparently wasn't necessarily our fault. That's part of the forgiveness aspect. So it's also connected to the parasites that we manifest when we overeat, because eating is probably the primary form of suppressing trauma and emotions. Let's say we've got this anger issue coming up, then we don't want to feel it in the moment, and we overeat to suppress it. And what that does is, because again, nature doesn't accept a void, and it always is there to help us deal with excess energy. If there's too much food that we're consuming, we're going to manifest a physical parasite, and then we can deal with the physical parasites with fasting. But this is going to bring up emotions too. The emotions are going to come up as emotional vomit, basically. So anything that we haven't fully processed, and we allow ourselves to feel by breathing, by fasting. That's one way, like a really good way to get to the bottom of the kind of stuck emotions that we've got going on. So it's kind of a beautiful system, and as within, so without. It's all kind of a reflection of what's going on and what we're healing generationally, and getting out of this looping parasite consciousness to get into a more spiritual upward spiral, returning back to the beauty in the world.